All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to cut right through the hype and tackle a massive contradiction, sitting at the very heart of the AI revolution. We're talking about the huge gap between its world-changing promise and its actual, measurable impact on the economy.
I mean, think about it. We have AIs that can ace the bar exam, placing in the top 10%. We've seen private investment in AI more than double in a single year. But here's the crazy part. For the better part of a decade, economic productivity has been totally, frustratingly flat.
So what gives? What is going on? That's the big mystery we're going to unpack in this explainer. It's a puzzle that pretty much every executive and economist is trying to solve. And the answer? Well, it reveals a much deeper truth about what it really takes to make AI work. All right, so let's get right into it. This massive disconnect has a name, of course. Economists call it the modern AI productivity paradox.
But here's the thing, and this is super important. This isn't new at all. This isn't some failure of AI. It's actually a totally predictable pattern we've seen time and time again with other game-changing technologies.
Think about electricity for a second. When it first hit factories, you'd think productivity would have shot through the roof, right? Wrong. For more than 20 years, nothing. It didn't budge. Why? Because you couldn't just yank out one giant steam engine and plop in one giant electric motor. The real breakthrough only happened when managers totally reinvented the factory floor around the new tech, using lots of smaller, distributed motors. AI is exactly the same. It's what's called a general-purpose technology, and its true impact gets delayed by the slow, hard, massive work of reinventing business from the ground up.
Okay, so that's the big picture, the whole economy. But let's zoom in. What does this reinvention process actually feel like for a real company trying to make this stuff work? I'll give you a hint. It is not a smooth ride up.
Before things get better, they often get a lot worse. We're talking about studies showing that when established companies first jump into AI, their productivity can absolutely tank, sometimes by as much as 60%.
Yeah, this nosedive has a name. It's called the productivity J-curve. It's this valley of despair, really, where the new tech clashes with the old ways of doing things. And honestly, this is where most promising AI projects go to die.
And this dip, it's not just random. It's the friction, the very real, measurable friction of trying to plug a 21st century brain into a 20th century body. You're rewiring everything from your data to your job descriptions to your entire org chart.
And this table just lays it out perfectly. The pain is not the same for everyone. If you're a company that was born digital, your dip is more like a little speed bump. You might see a return in a year or two. But for those older, established companies, oh man, it's a deep, dark canyon. And that canyon, that's a perfect measure of their organizational debt, all the tangled up old systems and processes that you have to fix before AI can do anything for you. So, understanding this brutal J-curve is the key to understanding a statistic that is, well, it's just mind-blowing. It explains why so many companies crash and burn right in that valley. 95%. Let that sink in for a second. An MIT study found that 95% of generative AI pilots fail. They produce zero, zip, nada in terms of value. But, and this is the most important part, it's not the AI's fault. The technology works. The problem is that organizations are just not ready for the heavy lifting required to make it work. So, what's tripping them up? Well, it almost always comes back to the human, organizational side of things. Leaders expect magic overnight. And when that J-curve dip hits, they freak out and pull the plug. Or they haven't done the grunt work on their data and systems. And then there's the classic mistake, trying to do a little bit of everything instead of going deep on one or two things that actually matter.
Okay, so if 95% of projects fail, how in the world do you become part of that tiny 5% that gets it right? Let's get into the playbook. Let's look at what the winners are doing differently from the losers.
You know, the secret is kind of counterintuitive. It's about ignoring the flashy, exciting stuff. The biggest wins, the most reliable returns, they're not coming from AIs that try to chat like a human. They're coming from what some folks are calling boring AI. Just practical tools that optimize a really specific, critical business process.
John Deere is a perfect case study. They didn't try to build some sci-fi, all-knowing farming robot. No, they zoomed in on one huge, expensive problem: farmers wasting herbicide. Their See and Spray system is brilliant. It uses computer vision to tell the difference between a crop and a weed, and it only sprays the weeds. They cut herbicide use by over 2/3. It's laser-focused, clear problem, targeted solution, and a massive, measurable return. Now compare that success with Amazon's infamous AI recruiting tool. They tried to tackle something incredibly complex and human, hiring. But the AI was trained on a decade of their own old data, and what did it learn to do? Well, it learned all the biases hidden in that data, and it started penalizing resumes from women. They had to scrap the whole thing. It's a classic example of pointing a powerful tool at the wrong kind of problem without understanding your foundations. So, what's the right way to do this? It's a really disciplined 4-step process. And notice, it doesn't start with code. It starts with an honest, hard look in the mirror at your data, your processes, your people. Then you pick a few of those boring but high-impact projects. You prepare everyone for the J-curve dip, and only after all that do you even think about scaling up.
And a tool like this matrix is your best friend here. You want to avoid that danger zone, for sure. Your goal is to live in quadrant 1, the quick wins. High ROI, low complexity. Stuff like supply chain optimization or predictive maintenance. These are the projects that build real momentum. They make you money that you can then use to fund the bigger, more strategic bets down the road.
Yeah. So, finally, while most companies are still wrestling with just getting started, the technology itself is already leaping forward. The whole idea of what an AI is changing.
You know, this idea that we're going to build one giant, all-knowing AI model to run an entire business, that's already starting to look a little outdated. A real business process has tons of different steps. A single general model might be okay at all of them, but it's not going to be an expert at any of them.
And that's why the cutting edge is moving towards something called agentic orchestration. Forget one big model. Think of it like a team of specialized AI agents. You've got your data analyst agent, your marketing copywriter agent, your customer service agent, all working together, coordinated by a manager agent. You're not just implementing a tool, you're literally building a digital workforce.
And that brings us to the big takeaway. The most important strategic question is changing. It's not just which AI model should we buy, it's becoming how do we build, manage, and lead our new digital workforce? Because getting this right, it's not about being the best at buying tech, it's about being the best at leading change. It's about doing the slow, hard, organizational work to prepare not just for one tool, but for a future where you're managing entire teams of AIs.